A custom PC for the farm, by user Haddix. Some years ago, exactly how many will become clear soon. I'm walking with my young nephew, 8, and my soon-to-be wife and our daughter, 4. I live on the edge of a small town, so we walk out into the countryside. This route goes through, yes, straight through, a working farm. The nephew's staying with us a few days, something which happens often, and the farm is like crack to him, he can't get enough of it. He's there excitedly identifying every piece of farming machinery he sees and waves at a tractor going by. An old woman gets out of the tractor to greet us, and the nephew asks her about all the farming tools and equipment. She's really impressed with him and asks him how he knows all this. He watches me playing Farming Simulator, which is a game I know he likes. What little boy doesn't love heavy plant and big machines? He tells her all about this game and how he likes to harvest with the big combines and chase after them with tractors and trailers. To the starstruck kid, she explains she's just moving the tractor and it's her husband who runs the business. She doesn't really know much about what any of it does. She wishes she knew more about it all, but those days are behind her. She's now very interested in him and this game. He explains how only an 8-year-old can, how he has to put weights on the tractors, so they don't tip up. If he doesn't fertilize the fields, he doesn't get as much money, but it costs just as much to harvest. So, she asks me what it takes to play this game. I tell her it works on a computer and, if she has one, she's welcome to borrow my copy. I give her my phone number if she wants to take me up on the offer. Her son has a gaming PC, so she tries it on his computer. A week later and she's on the phone asking how much a PC to play it would be. At this point I don't really build them to sell anymore, but that doesn't mean I can't. I tell her, it'll be about £900 and, if possible, a tour of the farm for my nephew. There was no deliberation as she agreed. I build her a low-end gaming PC, 8GB RAM, a dual-core, and a fairly hefty video card, one of the GTX 400 series if I remember right. We're talking around 8 years ago here, maybe a year more. We decide to tour the farm at harvest season, so he can see all the different things used to harvest different crops, so this was a few months away. On arrival, she says she's been playing the game 1 or 2 hours nearly every day and she's looking forward to the next release the year later. Her husband appears with a small tractor, hops the little lad into a side seat, and he's off to see the farm on a tractor. While this happens, I'm giving the lady a little advice about staying safe online, tell her there isn't really a solution to crap internet out in the country other than 3G cellular and 4G when it arrives, and fix a small problem she had with a printer. The kid comes back with the widest grin any face could possibly fit telling me he'd seen some horses. I had no idea what horse trials were, but he did, and he's now telling me all about the Frick Clay Hall horse trials. This has become a bit of a ritual. Now my son is 9, he was an infant at the time of the story, and he's picked up the love of farm machinery. Each harvest season we go see the farm, usually with me carrying some item of PC hardware the old lady wants to trick out her PC with. Last year, it was a Ryzen 5 5600X motherboard and 32GB of RAM with an SSD to replace the base system. This year it was an RTX 3060. Now my son himself has a Switch and Farming Simulator on it, ensuring the annual farming PC upgrade will go on for some years yet. What's PO? By user Diaskandeog. Background, we're a distributor that sells servers and other IT materials to installers. We also do security as an added branch and we assist customers with what products to buy for their big projects. Client called me and asked for a CCTV system. I tell him to get X, Y and Z. Customer then noted that the managed switches, 4 in total, I had recommended were really expensive. I told him that these were the switches I recommended, but that there were also alternatives. He sighs, says that he'll take them and I don't hear from him for 3 weeks. Today another person from the same company called back. He complained that the entire CCTV system wasn't working. Confused, I verified the materials and eventually I hopped onto TeamViewer to take a look. I couldn't reach any of the cameras, so I asked him if the switches were configured correctly. A long pause followed and the words, "What do you mean, configured?" popped out. I told him the switches he had, based on the datasheets I could check, had no PO and were just L2 switches. He asked me what PO was and what an L2 switch was. I ended up explaining basic TCP/IP terms to him. I asked him why he was installing such a large installation without the necessary knowledge or materials. His response? Our sales team decide what to sell. All I was told was to screw the cameras against the walls and just plug everything in. Turns out that the guy who initially called me, who turned out to be the sales guy, had decided that the managed switches I had recommended were too expensive after all, so they bought very simple L2 switches without PO to power the cameras to bring the costs down. I felt kind of bad for the guy. Wasn't his fault after all. Once again, sales strike again. When Excel isn't just a database, but the database, by user Parklife 980. A little story from an old job. Not strictly a tech support tale, although I was unofficially first-line tech support, the guy that knows how to fix stuff before they call IT. Like every office, we had an Excel database. It didn't have a name, it was just called the database. We also had a real database, our company's enterprise system, but that had its own name, DMS. DMS was rather fickle, and the server crashed quite often. One day my colleague got the usual couldn't access the database error. Rubbish, she retorted, I've just been in the database, look, it's working fine, and opened the Excel database to show us. I think of that day every time an Excel database is mentioned, grinning face with smiling eyes. Users who fail completely at submitting usable info, even when asked, are driving me cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, by Userica Strict C137. Users who fail completely at submitting usable info, even when asked, are driving me cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. It never fails. Ticket title, laptop sick. Ticket body, empty. Do you need one for your work? Do you have one and it is broken? Did it get stolen? What, exactly, is it you think I or anyone can do with this level of missing information? That's just the beginning. Next they submit a ticket which at least sounds like an issue, but fail to provide any usable info. I'll directly ask them. 1. What is the computer name? 2. Please screenshot the issue and don't crop out valuable contextual info. 3. Something targeted to see if it is something we might have going on or be aware of. And they answer one question only. 1. And incorrectly often. 2. Giving wrong computer name. So then I tell them, it appears you're missing some info here. Please submit the remaining requested information. You know, treat them like a responsible adult. And they, I kid you not, either answer only one additional question, half-ass it so that answer is barely usable, or say stuff like what questions? Or ask you to drop what you are doing and call them, when you have 30 other people who are cooperating while they are not, effectively pushing themselves back of the line. Or how about the ones who play games with the waiting for customer status, who keep replying with useless/irrelevant things just so it's not waiting for customer, wasting my time because I have to keep managing their ticket and re-asking questions. Then on admin requests, I'll ask them specific targeted questions about the need based on what they submitted. And they reply with one-word or incomplete answers. I had one the other day I had to ask 3 times the same question, guy kept changing subject, going off on tangent, refused to answer basic questions necessary to vet the request. Literally there was nothing I could do for him. These are fully grown adults, who work for a well-known company. You have to have something going for you to get hired at. It isn't language issues. Nothing being asked is technical. If they can't answer 1, or 1 2 3, how do they deal with stuff like the DMV, school, voting, 401k, finances, etc., all of which is infinitely more complex? I just don't get it. It's like they are trying to make my life hell. Running off to hide in a fetal position now. Edit, thanks for the replies, never knew so many others had the same experience. Even the guy who isn't in IT. Can't imagine doing like maintenance, where you may not be at your computer as often as you'd like, and having to deal with this. I guess it's just universal, people are bad at communicating. Makes me feel a little better at least. I work in an ultra-high volume environment, and with enough tickets we often begin to see trends and identify issues before our sysadmins notice. So getting decent info fast is important. I am often juggling 20, 30, even 60 issues from unique customers at a time and have a high close and satisfaction rating. I experiment with responses to see what seems to work best. Unfortunately, I have not found a way to get people to take their own tickets seriously enough to answer 2 to 3 easy non-technical questions 100% of the time. When this happens and we have people cooperating and others not, they only deny themselves a fast resolve. Above is actually concerning to me, despite the joking/rant, as there may be some legit hot items which then take longer to be identified. In this case, a worker is not just hurting themselves, they may be hurting company efforts. We get those people who submit a ticket and are never available, or who submit and then go on vacation or home for the day. I'll never get that. In my years at where I have been, we have a high same-day initial contact and close rate, yet they act as if they can't get support. There are some ideas in this thread. I plan to make another pass to go through it to see if I can try some new things. Thank you. I want to shank whoever wired up one of our buildings, by user Spider-Man. This story actually happened earlier today, so I'm still slightly aggravated. Just a bit. Anyway, I work in a manufacturing company and we have some ancient tech that needs a network connection. One of the devices has stopped connecting to the network after some maintenance, so I head over to check it out. There's no way to tell on the device itself if it has a connection or anything of that sort, so I decided the first step would be to see what's going on at the switch. See if there's activity lights blinking, etc. Except I had forgotten that whoever wired up this building was actually a demonic entity who sustains themselves on pure chaos. The plate at the wall was labeled 9D. I head over to the network closet to take a look, only to remember that nothing in the networking closet has a letter designation. Easy enough, just look for the 9. Except, the wire numbering makes absolutely zero sense. We have 2 patch panels in this building. The first one starts at 2 and goes 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 89, 70, then a wire labeled both 44 and 71, before going to 54, 56, 57, then counts back down from 53 to 38. How do you think the second panel is labeled, dear reader? If you guessed filling the gaps between 8 and 38, you'd be mostly correct. However, I bet you didn't guess that it started back at 2, thus causing duplicates of 2 to 8. Well, I figured at the very least this would give me cable number 9, but nope. This panel also skips 9, along with a few other seemingly random numbers, so it can fit 2 to 38 on a 24-port panel. So in all I had 7 duplicate cables, a completely nonsensical number scheme, a layout that makes no sense, and no goddamn cable 9. I decided to just break out the cable tester rather than figure out what in God's name these people were trying to do, so I could find my wire 9.